In this video, I'm going to explain what DeFi is in plain English. No jargon, no gatekeeping, just a very simple understanding of what decentralized finance is and why this is a massive, massive opportunity for both business owners and individual investors to incorporate into their portfolio right now. You may have seen on the internet people talking about unbelievable yields they are earning in DeFi, and you're probably wondering to yourself, is that real? Is it too good to be true? How does it actually work? And what does it mean? Well, you're in the right place because I'm going to break that all down right now. And make sure you stay to the end because I'm going to show you my results and what my decentralized finance investments produce in terms of yield every single day. Real quick, I just want to say this is not financial advice. This is for educational purposes only. Always make your own decision and consult a licensed professional before you make an investment decision. With that said, let's dive into the world of DeFi and break it down step by step. So what is DeFi? How does it work? To understand DeFi, you need to understand traditional finance. If Bob has a shirt and Alice wants to buy it, she can give him cash and he can give her the shirt, right? In exchange of money for goods or services. Pretty simple. Gets more complex if Bob has a shirt listed on eBay that Alice wants to buy, because Bob doesn't know Alice. The two parties don't know each other, so we have to go through intermediaries. For example, Alice has money in her bank, right? Her bank can vouch for that. Bob's bank needs to receive that money, and the way the money is moved is through a financial intermediary, typically Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, some type of third party that moves the money. This middleman is super important in traditional finance because Bob doesn't know Alice. Bob can't trust Alice because he doesn't know her, right? She's just a stranger from the internet. So what happens is the payment network kind of takes on that risk, right? They vouch for Alice, and then they deduct the money from her bank, and they deposit the money into Bob's bank, and he provides the good or service. That's how traditional finance has worked for a very, very long time. And moving this money is big, big business. The payments industry is expected to reach nearly 2.2 trillion by 2027. If we look at some of the revenues from the biggest companies in this space, MasterCard, Visa, Amex, even bank overdraft fees, Western Union moving money between countries, it is an unimaginable sum. This is such big business. Moving money produces quite a bit of profit. Now, in any market, when there is this much profit, there is always an opportunity. That's where decentralized finance ends up showing up. It's a decentralized infrastructure that allows peer-to-peer transactions without either party knowing each other, right? It's a trustless system. It doesn't need Visa or MasterCard. You can transmit money between two parties using the payment network, a decentralized payment network. And this is all done using blockchain technology. Something I always like to point out is that throughout human history, when something's discovered, things move very quickly. For example, the first true flight of the human race was around 1903, controlled human flight, right? Powered human flight, around 1903. In 66 years, we landed on the moon. So we went from not even being able to get into the sky to leaving Earth's atmosphere and landing on the moon in just 66 years. An unbelievable progression in a very short period of time. Now, of course, maybe we never landed on the moon, who knows? But that's a different video. So when I go through these things, I want you to keep that in your mind because why can't finance evolve just as quickly? Finance is something that is due for disruption. Every industry is disrupted so much more rapidly than finance has been, but that has changed drastically since the invention of blockchain technology. That 8 to 10% your financial advisor preached for many, many years, I think is the way of the past at this point. Now here's where we get into the nitty gritty. This is going to make sense, I promise. Just follow along here. This is called a liquidity pool. Try to imagine a digital account filled with two assets, 50% of one, 50% of another. Let's just pretend it's dollars and euros. In a traditional finance sense, this is going to make more sense for the analogy. Every day, people need to switch between the two, right? You might need to send money to your friend in Europe. You might be going on vacation. You might be sending money to a family member, or you might be a business that does business internationally. So you're moving between two currencies, right? Try to imagine this in that framework. And when this money is moved between two parties, the middleman takes a cut of the transaction. Western Union is known for absolutely gouging people. Sometimes it's nearly 7% to send money to your family overseas, an unimaginable number, right? You work really hard, You're trying to send money, do the right thing, and they're gouging you for 7%. So let's just, for this example, think of dollars and euros, and you understand people need to switch between the two. I think that's tracking. So let's go to the next slide here. In crypto, this happens millions of times per day. People need to switch between two cryptocurrencies. They have, let's say, Ethereum in this example, right? Look down here in the blue box, and they want Bitcoin. Or they have Bitcoin, they want Ethereum, right? There could be any number of combinations. There's tens of thousands, even millions of cryptos out there, and people want to swap between the two. Most cryptos you can't buy on a centralized exchange like Coinbase or Binance. You need these liquidity pools to even be able to purchase them. So this is a big deal, and this is where there's a lot of money to be made. So on the left side here, we have the liquidity provider. This can be an everyday investor. This can be a business owner, a business leader. It can be anybody on this side of the equation. The other side is the trader, the person that wants to swap between the two. So let's see what happens as they begin to do this transaction. Now, in order for this pool to be filled with these assets, right, so the trader can perform the action they want, the liquidity provider needs to provide the assets to the pool. There needs to be a pool of money to swap between, right? There needs to be this giant pool of money so that the trader can complete a trade between the two assets. The trader comes along and they might want to swap their Ethereum for Bitcoin, Bitcoin for Ethereum, what have you. I'm using these as examples. There actually isn't a swap between those two. However, just use them as examples. I think it's much easier to kind of understand from a high level. So you're swapping between two assets, right? And when they do that, the trader has to pay a transaction fee, of course, just like they do in traditional finance. Someone's providing a service, aka the middleman, and they're getting paid for that. Hopefully that makes sense. They're paying the transaction fee, except instead of that going to a bank or financial institution, that goes to the people providing liquidity. The people are the ones that earn that money, not the bank, not Western Union, not Visa, not MasterCard. Regular investors. Anybody can do this. So essentially, instead of banks charging this tiny little fee that adds up to billions of dollars in revenue, regular people can earn these fees. It's one of the coolest things in crypto, and it's something that you actually could live off of. The yield is so high that technically I could live off of this if I wanted to, and I'll show you how we do that in just a bit here. Now let me show you what is possible. I'll show you a couple of the different pools that I'm in and the type of yield they're generating. I just want you to suspend your disbelief for a second here, and I'll explain why the yield is as high as it is and how I'm managing these on an ongoing basis. So let's take a look at some of these liquidity pools so you get an understanding of how they work. So in this particular pool, you can see there's two assets, just like I described in the example. There's Arrow, which is a crypto token, and there's CBBTC. This is a type of Bitcoin. So I'm providing $5,000 just about. Typically around half of it is Arrow token and half of it is this derivative of Bitcoin, right? And for doing that, I'm getting paid literally almost every second. Every time somebody does a transaction, I'm earning a tiny bit of that fee, right? A tiny bit of the transaction fee goes to me. Now there's probably over $1 million in this pool. I can show you what that looks like. So I'm getting the proportionate amount that I should get based on how much I have in the pool. If I had $500,000 in the pool, and the pool's $1 million, I would get 50% of all the fees. Hopefully that makes sense. So you're getting the proportionate amount of how much money you have in, right? My money's in there with hundreds or thousands of other people at the same time. So this pool is a pool I really like. You can see for someone to use this pool, they pay a 0.3% fee. And again, that's divided amongst everybody in the pool. So far today, I've earned about $10 on this. It's paying about 95% annually to keep my money in this pool, which again is going to seem ridiculous. Somebody will say, no one on earth would pay you 95% to have your money in this pool. You're right. They're not paying us 95%. They're not paying us 400%. That's the part that's really difficult for a person to wrap their mind around from traditional finance. There is so much volume going through these pools that it's averaging around these numbers. And these change every second. It all depends how many people are doing transactions, right? That's kind of what's going on here. So don't think of it as people paying me 400%, 126%. They're not. They're doing transactions and the fees are adding up to those numbers. Hopefully that's making some sense. So if we scroll down a little further, we can see all the pools that I'm in. Now there is, of course, a number of risks here. You're holding both of these assets, so you need to be in assets that you believe in. That's critically important. And number two, you're getting shifted between the two assets. In a perfect pool, it's 50-50, right? However, as people swap and trade between the assets, the pool can get weighted one way or another, so you get moved between the two. That's essentially what this little line is showing me, is where my position is. It gets a little more complex, but this is a high-level video. I have videos that dive in deeper, but hopefully this is helpful thus far. So you can see across the board, if we look at this, and these are all estimates, I've got about 20 grand across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pools, right? And you can see I've divided it up a variety of different ways. That pays around $175 a day at the time of this recording. If I look at that on a weekly basis, it's about $1,200 a week. If I look at it on a monthly basis, it's over $5,000 a month. And on a yearly basis, we're talking about $64,000 annually. Now, I used to invest in a lot of multifamily properties, and once I discovered crypto and decentralized finance, I literally sold them all off because I feel that this is a much better avenue for me personally. Now, I think real estate's great, but I love this a lot more, and it's completely liquid. I'm getting paid every second of every day. So hopefully this was super exciting for you and eye-opening in terms of what's possible with DeFi. Feel free to check out my other videos. And if you want to get a jump start, you can look at our DeFi Executive Accelerator program and go to blockchainboardroom.com to get more information on that, on how we can help you get into the game very quickly. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.